Hi everyone, welcome back to my confessional. This is Laurent. Um, this is episode 5. Um, and boy, last round really cranked things up a notch. Um, I didn't get the chance to, confess fully about it last round while it was happening. Um, because everything was just like happening so fast I can't snap, but it was like happening within the snap of a finger. And you know, it was such a slow day, and then when it picked up, it like mentally for me like did not stop. Um, but if you haven't looked at my live confessional, there's like a play-by-play of what's happening and how I'm feeling every step of that way. So go check that out if you haven't. My live confessional is like my favorite, it's my safe space. So go there and watch me like freak out. But yeah, last we left off, I was paranoid because nobody was bringing up any sort of name or, plan. It was literally just like sitting here doing a bunch of nothing. Um, that was until, I get a message from Iniko and later on Orion saying, I think Orion, Iniko told me, I think Orion wants to work with us. He was saying something about Yvette and Umar, um, talking to the pairs one on one and trying to get their information so they could play the idol, so they could use and play the idol if they acquire it from, guessing successfully all the pairs. So they were trying to identify all 13 pairs. Um, this didn't really surprise me. I sort of felt like Yvette might be making some like sneaky decisions behind closed doors because after that first round where she did save me, I will give her that. She did play a huge role in saving me. Like both she and Petra did absolutely splinter off in terms of, my conversations with them, my interests with them. We just felt less involved. And I feel like with Orion and Brooks, that definitely heightened in between that time. Um, But then Orion messages me and gives me the rundown of what he's thinking is happening, and he says, I want to blindside Yvette and like take out this idol, presuming that she has it. I have no way of confirming or denying that. And I was like, wow, okay, this is like a good plan. I'm like down. It was the first name that I heard all day. Like I hadn't heard like the plan to vote out Zola, which was the initial plan for the OG Yagashiri. Um, that didn't come up until after the fact, after the plan to blindside Yvette was already going into motion on my end. Um, so I was like, sure, like I'll go along with this plan. I don't feel particularly close to Yvette anymore, anyways. And on top of that, my relationship with Petra all day and the whole day before, my relationship with Petra was just like on this plateau. It wasn't, our conversations were not going anywhere. And it was really frustrating because, I sort of wanted to paint myself up as this player in the initial stages of the game who really, wants to take guidance from people like Petra because she was somebody who quite had the biggest hand in saving me last round or in round one. So I wanted to like stick with her, but it felt like between both of us, we were no longer at the same place that we were in round one. And, like, I'm grateful that, I was playing so hard round one socially, because if I didn't and I didn't have the standing that I had with Petra at the time, I probably would have went home. Um, if the relationship that I had with Petra now was happening in round one, I definitely would have went home. I would have been first boot, gone, goodbye, see you later, ta-ta. Um, but now I'm here and I'm like, okay, they want to blindside Yvette and Petra. At first I was a little unsure how we were going to get the numbers for it, but then I was, thinking, you know, if Hayden is, or not if Hayden, sorry, she was messaging me. If Orion is the one that figured out this knowledge and wants to put this plan into motion, there are definitely a number of people that he can point to and say, hey, like, it, we have a mutual interest to get Yvette out as this revenge sort of thing. He mentioned Reza first, and proposed a four-person alliance between myself, Reza, Iniko, and him. Um, and then I was thinking, Hayden, it makes sense. They didn't ask Nathaniel because I told Yvette round one that Nathaniel and Quincy were a pair. I don't know if that got out or anything, but I shared that knowledge. I'm assuming they asked Hayden and her partner. Assuming they asked Petra and her partner, but Petra and Yvette are already so close that the like we want to be a top secret two pair alliance probably wasn't really necessary for Yvette to push that. So it really just became okay, there are definitely going to be the numbers available to make this move, and they're going to be able to make it successfully with or without my help. And as time went on, we were like, okay, the plan is we're going to tell everybody but Yvette, Petra, and Zola, which I question marks personally, but I digress. I was feeling pretty good at first about this plan, but then it definitely started deteriorating in terms of my confidence in this plan once I started posting in my confessional, just going rapid through the benefits of this, the things that don't really matter but are still going to happen anyways, and then the negatives. It's okay, some of the positives are it puts me in a middle position. Nobody's going to be mad at me necessarily for making this move. They're going to be mad at each other and, the warring sides. Um, and sorry, I'm forgetful. What did I post in my round 4 confessional? Because it's in my confessional, the entire live post. It helps me, the blocks that I was worried about the blocks. I talked about that in my last confessional. I was worried about, the potential hierarchy between the OG Yagashiri, and how everybody sort of perceived me to be on the bottom. So, being involved with this move and shaking things up, I don't think propelled me to the top, which I'm going to get into in a minute, but I think it helped me find more cover and have people feel like I'm less of a, consensus decision to make. The reasons it does not matter, I'm not involved. This whole partner thing, Alex and I were not part of this equation. Everybody found out that Alex and I were partners round 1. So I don't have a stake in the game like the other people who were involved in making the move did. Which leads me to my concerns, and I will read them out. The reasons I was concerned, if I'm not too involved, how can I create an in for myself later on in the game or right now? How do I build a resume if I'm not the one who has the stake in the decisions being made? So this was the big thing for me. I don't want to just be a follower who's making moves to get to the next round. I understand that this decision to blindside Yvette doesn't really concern me, but I don't want to fall off the radar as somebody who's making moves that are good for them and not just making moves to survive. In addition, I also said I was worried specifically about the pairs who experienced whatever happened with Umar and Yvette, teaming up and feeling a sort of camaraderie with each other and feeling okay, we can work together. We have this shared experience and we have this bonds that people like me don't necessarily have because I didn't have this sort of experience. And lastly, I lose Petra, who's somebody that I still really want to align myself with, but I don't think that that'll end up being the case should Petra and I meet back up again in the game. I did briefly voice my concerns to Brooks and Iniko about this because at that point both of them were, aware of the move that was happening. Brooks was a little bit more receptive to it, but Iniko is a little rejective of it and, trying to like sort of convince me otherwise, which I'm absolutely aware of what he was trying to do. I think Iniko is trying to play up this like, oh, I haven't played an org in a really long time. I'm not really like that strategic. He literally called me the strategic one, and I was like, I'm not the strategic one in any relationship. In what world am I the strategic one? I am full on a social player. That's how I play the game. I'm not like a strategic mastermind, although I would like to train myself to be a strategic mastermind. Um, but he was very unreceptive to my concerns, and that would sort of play on later in the night when, the plan was solidifying, and I found out that Yvette and Petra were actually going to vote with Zola and vote out Brooks and try and get the pink Tsushima um, block to vote out Brooks. And I was like, listen, if Yvette has the idol first and foremost, and they know that we're trying to blindside them, they're lying about voting Brooks, and the only other option is voting for me. So I'll be honest, I was like pretty paranoid about this. I was worried that if they play the idol, I'm basically sunk. But they did not tell me this directly until about 5 minutes before the deadline, which secured me feeling comfortable about being safe. But also gave me a little bit of cover for the move I was about to make and the decision I was about to make, because they were keeping me in the dark about something that I was also keeping them in the dark about. And that's what I was saying to Petra, like, I can't think that we can be too mad at each other for making these decisions when we're both equally at fault, if there even is a fault. Thankfully, we did swap. I was a little nervous for the entirety of the aftermath. I think there's a lot more conflict between the people on the original Sky group now, which seems to definitely be, from what I've heard, the more difficult of the two sides so far in this game. So that's definitely leaving me optimistic. The more conflict there is, the more I can like wiggle myself in and, appeal to other people's interests to hopefully get what I want once we get to a merge or a swap. Um, Speaking of the swap, I will not be. This is going over my time limit, so I will probably write a text confessional about the swap either later tonight or tomorrow, whichever one I'm really feeling. So yeah, thank you guys for listening. Hopefully I continue to partake in many a slay.